Tough week. Didn't have the guys ready to play. I'll take the blame for that. That's on me. Made some poor personnel decisions this week. Benched Alvin Kamara and tried to send him a message, and backfired on me. He played well. Poor coaching decision. Started the wrong tight end. Again, a poor coaching decision. Started the wrong defensive player. Poor coaching decision on my part. Flex position. We got 2 points. That's not my fault. That's not a poor coaching decision. That's just poor execution on Courtland Sutton's part. 2.7 points. Bottom line is, at the flex position, 1 week we're scoring 30 points, the next week we're scoring 2. We need better consistency. We can't rely on Josh Allen and McCaffrey to pull us every week, scoring 40 or 50 points. To make matters worse, the injury bug continues to hit us. 5 minutes after last week's press conference, found out Britton Strange, our tight end, was going on IR. wasn't prepared for that. Then just in the middle of the first quarter, our wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. gets a concussion. He's out after making 2 catches. Linebacker Fred Warner out for the season in the first quarter of this Sunday. Even our water boy ruptured his Achilles tendon getting off the bus on Sunday. I preached for the last several weeks now, next man up mentality, but the only problem with that is we're running out of men. This week's sponsorship is brought to you by the original Crash Test Dummies. Why? Well, because lately whenever our players get hit, body parts just start flying off like those classic toys from the 90s. Use code LACESOUT and get a free replacement limb with every purchase. Thoughts on our performance? It just wasn't good enough. Our offensive production was, the worst that it was all year. Allen was solid. McCaffrey was solid as usual, but we need more guys to step up. Bottom line, we need better production out of the flex position. I didn't have the right guys in there. I promise that we're going to reevaluate, our roster and get the right guys in position this week. With that, I'll open up the questions. Mm-hmm. The injuries have hit hard. What can be done? Honestly, really, at this point, we just got to pray. We've petitioned the league to see if our players would be allowed to wear bubble wrap in this Sunday's game. We're still waiting on confirmation on whether that's going to be allowed or not. Really, when it comes to injuries, we got to find out, are the guys hurt or are they injured? We play in a black and blue league. At this point in the season, everyone's hurting. Hell, I'm hurting. I'm being at practice every day, especially hurting after a game, like Sunday where I had to watch a pathetic performance. Hopefully, we'll hear some good news back from the league by the end of this week, and we'll be able to use bubble wrap, and maybe that might, save a few guys for us this week. All right, other questions. Quarterback Josh Allen's on a bye this week. It couldn't come at a worse time with the rash of injuries that we've had. But, so Tua's going to have to step in, and he's going to have to fill Allen's shoes. Honestly, with Tua's concussion history, I encourage all prayer warriors to unite because, we're going to need a prayer and a miracle that he makes it through this week without a concussion. As far as the rest of the lineup goes, I really don't know at this point. I do know that Rashee Rice is eligible. We've been waiting on his return for all season. So, he will get the start. Other than that, I might resort to eeny, meeny, miny, mo to make my final, selection. Or I might potentially get the guys together and we'll play some paper, rock, scissors and see who wins that battle. All right, other questions? Yes, Gary. Gary, I give you a lot of grief sometimes, but, I do appreciate you. But unfortunately, no, we are not going to use the plays that you drew up for me last week at halftime. Like I told you Sunday, offenses in the NFL do not run the single wing anymore. We're not going to use a playbook from a time that when it was last used, players were wearing leather helmets. But I appreciate your enthusiasm, Gary, but it's going to be a hard pass. All right, other questions? Yeah, this week's opponent, it doesn't get easier. Steel Curtain again. I swear we just played them a few weeks ago, but division opponent. They're tough. Right now they're number one in the league, number one in the division. They smell blood in the water. When they're playing us, they did take their first loss this past Sunday, so I know they'll be looking to rebound. So if we can keep our guys healthy, I feel like we've got a good shot. And I know the guys in that locker room there, even though it's funny, we played them a few weeks ago, but half our team is injured since, so we're going to have a whole new lineup, playing them this time. So Coach Jay Jones, he's going to have to prepare for that, a new look. Rasheed Rice, we don't have any film from him this year, so hopefully we got a few wrinkles up our sleeve that we're going to throw his way. So division win, we need it. And I got faith in the guys in that locker room. And again, prayers would be helpful. But we're going to give it our all. All right, that's all I have time for. Bottom line, and I want to make this clear. We're 4-2. We're still sitting in a great spot in this league. Just one bad performance doesn't define the season. I believe in the players in that locker room. I believe in our coaches that are putting together the game plans. So at this time of the year, this is the time that all teams face adversity. So I'm excited to see how our players are going to respond